I remember the morning everything changed. Not because of what happened that day, but because it was the last morning I woke up believing tomorrow would come. The sirens had become so constant that we learned to sleep through them, to eat breakfast while the walls trembled, to kiss our children goodnight, knowing the ceiling might not hold until dawn. We were living in a world where hope had to be rationed like water, and I had already drunk my share. My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I was a mother, a daughter, a teacher who believed words could change minds. I taught literature in a small school near the border, where children learned to read poetry between the sounds of distant explosions. I would stand at the chalkboard, my hands shaking as I wrote verses about peace, while outside the windows, smoke rose from places that used to be homes. The children would watch me with eyes that had seen too much, eyes that should have been filled with dreams, but instead reflected only survival. The day they came for our neighborhood, I was teaching a lesson on resilience. The irony wasn't lost on me even then. We heard the rumbling first, that deep grinding sound that means the earth itself is being torn apart. Then the screams. Always the screams. I told my students to get under their desks, as if wood and metal could protect them from what was coming. I remember thinking how absurd it was, this ritual we performed, pretending we had control over anything at all. I lost my daughter that day. Her name was Awit, which means morning star, and she was 7 years old. She had stayed home sick with a fever, nothing serious, just a cold that had kept her up coughing through the night. My mother was watching her. I can still see her face when I left that morning, pressed against the window, her small hand waving goodbye. I didn't know it would be the last time. How could I have known? We tell ourselves we would know, that we would feel it, that the universe would give us some sign before it takes everything. But it doesn't. It just takes. When I finally made it home through streets that no longer existed, I found only rubble. The building was gone. Completely gone. As if it had never been there at all. I tore at the concrete with my bare hands until they bled, screaming her name into the dust. Other survivors pulled me away, held me while I fought them, while I begged them to let me die there too. They wouldn't, and I have spent every day since trying to understand. If they were merciful or cruel. My mother's body was found 3 days later. They identified her by her wedding ring. My daughter they never found. There was nothing left to find. That is what war does. It doesn't just kill, it erases. It removes people so completely that sometimes I wonder if I imagine them. If Awit was ever real, or just a dream I had before I understood what the world truly was, I should have died there too. Part of me did. The part that believed in tomorrow, that thought love could shield us from violence, that trusted in the goodness of humanity. That woman was buried in the ruins along with my child. What emerged was something else, something harder, something that had to be hard to survive. The refugee camp became my home. Thousands of us packed into tents that couldn't keep out the cold or the rain or the despair. I would lie awake at night listening to other mothers crying for their children, fathers asking why they couldn't protect their families, children who had forgotten how to play. We were ghosts, all of us, haunting the places where our lives used to be. I stopped speaking for 3 months. What was there to say? Words had failed me. They had failed all of us. I had taught literature, believed in the power of language, and it had meant nothing. Bombs don't care about poetry. Hatred doesn't listen to reason. I thought silence might be more honest than anything I could say, but silence is its own kind of death. And I had already lost too much. It was an old woman in the camp who brought me back. She had lost everyone too, her entire family spanning 3 generations. One night she came to my tent and sat beside me without saying anything. She just sat there hour after hour, night after night, until finally I asked her why. She told me that the dead don't need our silence. They need our voices. They need us to tell their stories, to make sure the world knows they existed, that they mattered, that they were loved. She said that silence is what our enemies want, because silence means they have won completely. I started writing everything down. Every memory of Ailét, the way she would sing made-up songs while helping me cook, how she insisted on wearing mismatched socks because matching was boring, the scar on her knee from when she fell learning to ride a bicycle, the exact shade of brown in her eyes, her favorite story, which she made me read every single night, even though she had memorized every word. I wrote it all, terrified that if I didn't capture it perfectly, she would disappear completely. Then I started collecting other stories. I walked through the camp with a notebook, asking people to tell me about who they had lost. At first, they looked at me like I was cruel, like I was forcing them to reopen wounds that couldn't heal. But then they would start talking, and once they started, they couldn't stop. They needed to tell someone. They needed someone to witness their grief, to acknowledge that their loved ones had been real. I heard about fathers who had sacrificed themselves to save their children, mothers who had stayed behind to search for their babies while buildings collapsed around them, grandparents who had given their food rations to the young, brothers and sisters who had held each other during the worst moments, promising it would be okay, even when they knew it wouldn't be. So much love in the midst of so much death. So much humanity persisting despite everything designed to destroy it. Learned that every number reported in the news was a universe. Every casualty figure was someone's entire world ending. The statistics that people read over their morning coffee and forgot by lunch were children who would never grow up, artists who would never create, lovers who would never meet, dreams that would never be realized. War isn't measured in territories lost or strategic victories. It's measured in all the tomorrows that will never come. The international journalists started coming to the camp. They wanted stories, something to humanize the conflict for their audiences back home who couldn't really understand. I became their guide. I introduced them to families. I translated pain into words that could fit into 2-minute news segments. I watched them cry while interviewing orphan children, then watched them leave to file their reports from safe hotels, then watched as nothing changed, but I kept talking anyway. Because what else could I do? Silence meant surrender, and I had already lost too much to surrender what little I had left. My voice became my weapon, my testimony became my resistance. If they wanted to erase us, to pretend we didn't matter, then I would make them see us. I would make them hear us. I would force them to acknowledge that we existed, that we were human, that we deserved to live. I testified at humanitarian hearings. I spoke at universities where students debated the ethics of war from the safety of their campuses. I gave interviews to anyone who would listen. Some people called me a hero. Others called me a propagandist. I didn't care. I wasn't doing it for praise or approval. I was doing it because every time I told Ailét's story, she lived again for a few minutes. Because every time I shared someone's testimony, they weren't forgotten. Because silence meant the destruction was complete, and I refused to let it be complete. The cost of speaking has been high. I have received death threats from people who say I'm betraying my country, and from people who say I'm not radical enough in my condemnation. I've been called a liar, a traitor, a fool. I've lost friends who couldn't understand why I wouldn't choose a side, why I insisted on mourning all victims, why I refused to hate as completely as they wanted me to. But hatred is what created this hell. More hatred won't end it, Dot. There are nights when the weight of all these stories crushes me. When I lie in my tent, now in a different camp in a different country, and I feel every loss as if it were my own. Because it is my own. Because we are all connected in our grief, all bound together by what has been taken from us. I carry their dead with my dead. I carry their trauma with my trauma. And some nights I don't think I can carry it anymore. But then morning comes. The morning star rises as it always does, as my daughter's name promised it would. And I remember that I survived when I shouldn't have. That I emerged from the ruins when I should have been buried in them. That I still have breath in my lungs and a voice in my throat. And if I have these things, then I have a responsibility to use them. I think about Ailith constantly. What she would be now if she had lived. She would be 12, starting to become a young woman. Maybe she would be angry with me for embarrassing her. Maybe we would fight about clothes or friends or homework. Maybe she would roll her eyes at my old-fashioned ideas. I would give anything to have those fights. I would give anything to be annoying to her, to be the mother she was growing too old for. I would give anything for the chance to see who she would have become, but I don't get that chance. None of us do. The children buried in the rubble don't get to grow up. The parents who sacrificed everything don't get to see their children's weddings. The lovers don't get their future together. War steals time itself, makes it impossible to imagine tomorrow because tomorrow has been taken away. So I speak for them. I speak for Ailith. I speak for my mother. I speak for every name I collected in that camp, every story I was trusted with, every life that was erased but not forgotten. I speak because they can't. I speak because someone has to tell the truth about what war actually is, stripped of strategy and politics and justification. War is a 7-year-old girl who will never become a 12-year-old girl. War is a mother teaching poetry while everything burns. War is hands bleeding as they claw through concrete. War is silence that must be broken. People ask me if I found peace. I haven't. I don't think I ever will. How do you find peace when you've seen what I've seen, lost what I've lost? How do you make peace with a world that allows such suffering? How do you forgive what has been done? I can't answer these questions. All I can do is survive one more day and tell one more story. I've learned that survival isn't about moving on or healing or letting go. It's about carrying the weight and walking forward anyway. It's about transforming grief into purpose, loss into legacy. It's about making sure that those we lost are never truly gone as long as we remember them, speak their names, tell their stories. Memory is the only immortality we can offer the dead. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe more war. Maybe more loss. Maybe the world will finally listen and things will change. Or maybe nothing will change and we'll keep repeating this cycle of violence and grief until there's nothing left but ruins. I don't have hope anymore, not the kind I used to have. But I have something else. I have witness. I have testimony. I have truth, and I have my voice. They took everything else, but they couldn't take that. As long as I'm breathing, I'll keep speaking. As long as I can form words, I'll keep telling these stories. As long as anyone will listen, I'll keep demanding that the world see what it has allowed to happen. I survived the silence of the ruins, not so I could remain silent, but so I could become a voice for those who were silenced. This is my purpose now. This is what I do with a life I didn't think I would keep. I carry the dead forward. I refuse to let them be forgotten. I refuse to let their suffering be meaningless. I refuse to be silent about what I've seen, what I've lost, what we've all endured. Every word is a small rebellion against the forces that wanted to erase us. Every story is proof that we were here, that we mattered, that we were human. Ailith, my morning star, this is for you. For all the mornings you should have seen. For all the light you should have brought into this world. For the woman you should have become. I couldn't save you. I couldn't protect you from what this world is capable of. But I can make sure you're remembered. I can make sure your story is told. I can make sure that when people speak about the cost of war, they know your name, they see your face, they understand what was lost when you were taken. I'm still here, still breathing, still speaking, still fighting the only way I know how. With words, with testimony, with truth. I survived the silence of the ruins, and I will not be silent again. This is my promise to you, to my mother, to everyone we lost. As long as I have breath, I will be your voice. As long as I can speak, I will tell your story. As long as anyone will listen, I will make them understand what war truly costs. And maybe someday, someone will listen. Maybe someday it will matter. Maybe someday the world will look at what it has done and choose differently. Maybe someday no other mother will have to dig through rubble searching for her child. Maybe someday no other teacher will watch smoke rise while trying to teach children about hope. Maybe someday there will be no more ruins, no more silence, no more forgetting Dot. Until then, I carry you all with me. I speak for you. I remember you. I refuse to let you disappear into statistics and history. You were real. You were loved. You mattered. And I will make sure the world knows.